So far, we've been looking at node lists, which you actually have to generate by executing code. And there are collections of objects that are automatically generated when you load your page. And these are called collections. And automatically, when you load a page, the browser generates a collection of anchors, which are links, forms, anything that's in your head or your images, any titles. These are automatically generated. In the lab assignment, you are actually going to be working with collections, and you're going to be looking at links and images. And collections are similar to node lists. The primary difference is they're automatically created. They are a collection, so there is more than one. You do have to subscript in, and you start subscripting with a 0. It's not an array. You can't use any array methods with it, but there is a length property, just like there's a length property in a node list. So I did make a little table that compares them. So the primary difference is a collection is automatically created. Another difference is that your node list does let you generate a list for attributes and text nodes and all of that type of thing. And you really can't do that with a collection. So I do have some examples here. And we're going to take a look at what this one does. Whoop, I think I've got it out here twice. So what this list generated was a directory of links at the bottom. So it basically used the collection of links, and it accessed the entire link, and it just kind of spit it out at the bottom. And this is the code that did that. So we have a little function called process links, and you can see that the text string called contents has a little heading here that we added with the little separator. We get into a little for loop here, and we are using the link collection, and we're going to stay in here as long as our subscript is less than the length of that collection. And you can see I've got a little span tag, and I've set the class to link, which is going to style this. And all of this is being used to grab the entire link and the text that is displayed. So that is grabbing everything from the opening to the closing anchor and everything in between. And it's doing that for every single link on the page. So if we look at our source code, you can see, here's my first link. And so the code is accessing all of this, the link itself and the code between the opening and closing anchor. And you'll see that I have nothing at the bottom of the page except for a paragraph with an ID of links. That's what's being targeted. So that section of links that you see is being generated using the collection. Okay, so we're basically adding the entire link to contents, and then we're putting the contents into that paragraph with the ID set to links. We're using inner HTML to do that. This next example is accessing the form collection. So I've got a bunch of do nothing forms here. I've got 4 different forms that absolutely do nothing, but I do have different IDs associated with those forms. And you'll notice that I've got a paragraph that says number of forms, and then I'm going to actually write out how many forms there are. So it should be a 4. We got 4 forms. And then I'm going to write out the names of the forms. So I've got another little heading that says name of forms. Got a little for loop here, document.forms.length. So as long as we're less than 4, it's going to write out the ID associated with each form. So it's going to be writing out form 1, 2, 3, and 0, and then it'll be done. So if you want to take a look, okay, number of forms is 4, and then it wrote out form 1, 2, 3, and 0, which are the IDs associated with each form. And this next example is almost identical to what you guys are going to do for your lab assignment. And if you want to see what this looks like, your lab assignment is going to involve doing something almost identical. You're going to have 4 thumbnails that link to larger images, and everything below is going to be generated. So the name is generated by accessing the alternate text for the image collection. The photo source, I believe, is accessing the link collection. We'll take a look here. So we're starting with the images and the alt tag. Oh, no, it's images and source. And then the very last one is looking at links. So we're looking at the image collection for the first 2. The last one is looking at the link collection. And so just taking a quick look here, you'll notice that we have a paragraph with an ID set to name. The opening is here, the closing is here, and in between is where our script is. And when the page loads, it calls process name. We aren't clicking a button, it automatically calls it when the page is loaded. And we have a little content string. And basically, we are going to stay in this little for loop for the number of images that we have. We have 4. So as long as the subscript is less than 4, we stay in the loop. And the first time we go through, subscript is at a 0, but a 0 with a dot after it looks pretty silly. Okay, we want it to start with the number 1. So we basically just add 1 to the subscript so it displays a number that makes sense to people. Okay, we concatenate that with a dot, and then we add the alternate text followed by 2 spaces. Okay, we're adding this to the content string for each image, and then we are updating the paragraph here with the ID set to name with the contents of the string. And this is what the string contains, and it gets updated at that point. Okay, then we call process source, so it comes down here and it runs through this script. And what this is doing is it's giving us basically the source attribute of our image tag. And so again, we've got a content string set to blanks. It's going to stay in the for loop, basically as long as the subscript is less than 4, because we have 4 images. And we start our numbering with 1. We're adding a 1 to the subscript because starting with a 0 does not make sense. And then we are just subscripting into our image collection and grabbing the source. And so you can see the source of my first thumbnail is shown, and it is using the full web address for the source. Source of my second thumbnail, here's the source of the third one, and then the source of the final one. Okay. Once it's done processing the source of the images, it calls process links, and that is down here. And we have a little content string that I'm starting with a bar, and that bar I got by pressing Shift. It's right below your backspace key. And we get into that same little for loop that's using the length of, this time it's the length of the links. Okay, and there's only 4 links. Okay, so the length of links is 4. And this time we're actually putting together a link. So you can see we start with a space href equals, that's a string. And we concatenate that with the contents of the href. Okay, that is the hypertext reference. That is the address we are linking to. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so now we are looking at the link itself. And so that would be our anchor. Here's the hypertext reference. Okay, so we are formatting manually the A and the href. And then we are taking the contents here and we are adding it in. Okay, so that's what document.links.href is doing. And then you can see we're adding that closing angle bracket. So this is our opening anchor. And then we are using the alternate text to display. And then we are concatenating on a closing anchor and that line. And we're doing that for each link. Okay, and once we're done, we're updating this location, and this is what you get. These are actual links to the larger image. And you guys will have fun with this on the lab assignment.